of me yelling at one of the residents. My apologies. Anyway, I'm going to be more specific now in terms of this choosing my hard. That's been the theme lately, particularly as I'm navigating. You probably saw my other live. Thank you for the people who tuned in. But um, to narrow it down and be more specific about hopefully my best laid plans. And for those who might have heard the story of my hospitalization last year, I'm going to go back to that time when I was in the hospital. Hopefully, I can segue into the discussion I'm about to have in less time than it should take. Uh, During my week in the hospital, I had been approached by a dietitian. This is part of the diabetic education. And I already had done some personal research on tackling diabetes through diet and lifestyle. You might have heard that phrasing throughout the years, especially with the wild, wild west of the interwebs. Great. So, a lot of what I've come in contact with, even before then, but a lot of buzzwords were thrown around about various allergies, afflictions, sensitivities, or what I've come to know as inflammation triggering food. Take your pick. Whether we're talking about those with celiac, and particularly when it came to autism, particularly during that time. I forget the time frames where I came across that. So may have been 2010, maybe a little later than 2010. But particularly for those with autism, gluten was a big deal. And of course, I think I might have heard celiac during that same time frame. So fast forwarding to the visitation with the dietitian, I already been, I don't know how steeped I was, but I was already familiar with inflammation, food inducing various triggers, so things like that. And in the hospital, I'm just trying to play dumb. And so I asked the question, so what about this and that inflammation? Okay. To her credit, she admitted a couple of things. Again, to her credit, she wasn't familiar with inflammatory food. Okay. That might have been the biggest red flag of them all. Because I would understand that she may not be familiar with food in context. So, in other words, for people who might have a certain lifestyle profile, like for myself, I'm not your gym rat, I'm not your gym bro, but I am a martial artist who likes to stay fit. So, I understand there's a time and place for certain times for replenishment and when to introduce certain food, protein, carbs, fat, etc. Okay? And she mentioned deferring to a sports nutritionist. Cool. So I'll give her honesty. I'm looking at the comments here. Hello, guys. Well, thanks again for tuning in. Again, YouTube has this thing about showing aliases instead of channel names. So my apologies there. And I'm on my phone. So, hello, guys. So, so to her credit, she admitted those things. So I already knew. Peace out, deuces. Wish you the best of luck. Have a happy life. But the other thing too, what kind of put the nail in the coffin when it came to trusting of my advice, and I hated it that my dad was in her presence. because I hate to say it, my dad doesn't know too much better, and he gives me the vibe he doesn't want to. He doesn't like to overthink things. So she parroted the same narrative provided by the people who fund the hospital. Wink, wink, nod, nod. You kind of know who I mean. Aw, boohoo. Well, oh, well, I mean, metrics are what they are. Anyway, so, okay, like I said, have a nice life. Peace out. I'm done with your advice because at least you admitted a couple of things. So, fast forward, I discharged and they asked me to go through diabetic education. I don't know if I want to call it a struggle session. It kind of sounded like that when I met with her for the first day. And I think that was the only day I checked in with her. And I tried to I tried to talk about eating whole, real food. Okay, great. I mentioned grass-fed milk, and so she was saying, "Oh, great, got a great profile." Okay, good. She's kind of in the know. But at the same time, she was peddling the same literature. Again, they were part of the same clinic system or the same healthcare or hospital system. They're part of a chain of hospitals. Okay? And so she was peddling the same literature by the people who provided the same. Oh, hello there. Well, to catch up to speed, I'm talking about piecing out on two dietitians during my hospital stay and after my hospital stay. To catch you up, I'm trying to look at this alias here. Steven, it looks like. So, yes, Steven. So, I was hospitalized last year for diabetes and congestive heart failure. And so I was being read the same talking points by the people who give the funding. So she was saying things like eat things like margarine, cut down on saturated fat, want to, and I'm like, you're talking like out of both sides of your mouth. See ya. Have a nice life. I pieced out immediately after the first appointment, and I don't know what I call it diabetes indoctrination. Don't know if I want to put it that way, but there's something to be said about people updating their training. And I find it ironic in medical care, there's no admonition to or admonishment to update your training. Because after you get your badge, your MD label, whatever label you want to put to your name, it's like, I'm done. I don't need to know the latest bits of information. Not that you're beholden to the latest bits of information, but at least be aware of what's out there and then test it. Test the knowledge against whatever. One of my favorite medical professionals is Nick Norwitz. He's a youngster, but he has this mantra: stay curious and question the dogma. And so that's what I'm noticing about the medical establishment. So if you saw my previous live where I talk about being in the realm of the naturopathic scene, at least that's where I'm going. That's what I'm studying. And I think within that scene itself, as I do my research, a lot has changed. And even the learning modules I'm looking at, there is an acknowledgement of an evolution. Are there things that I butt heads with in terms of what appears to be a very vegan bias or vegetarian bias? I mean, if we're supposed to be in this naturopathic mindset, you kind of look at the entirety of nature, particularly when people talk about, going carnivore. And so, fast forwarding to the present time, at least within the last month and change, I'm likely going to check out of the two dietitians that I've been working with. One actually recommended by my younger sis. I don't know why, but I don't know. For the one person watching or so, best part of the best part of the day. Um, best part of the day for me. Do you mind putting some context to that? Uh, I'd be more than happy to respond. Best part of the day usually is in the morning. Being where I'm at in Northwest, especially as we get closer to the end of daylight savings time, sun goes down a little bit sooner than I would like. So I, going back to the dietitians, particularly one is hooked or linked with the app NutriSense. Now I'm on the fence. I took advantage of Ben Azadi's coupon code to at least kick the tires on at least a month. And I see the virtue behind it, and I think it does a good job of tracking. But I will likely have a conversation with this person about whether she can be outside of the NutriSense. And knowing that I'm in between, I'm shopping insurance plans. And that would be the only reason why I would check out and do peace out on her. The other one, she's enlightened me, but I somehow get triggered when I hear the word or phrase whole grains. Knowing what we know about grains, especially grains done here in America, there's a lot of work to be done to make the grains healthy. Um, and so I get there are certain buzzwords, and I understand there's a dimension called gut health or the microbiome. I get it. I mean, I've been inundated with that literature and that information uh, for a while, uh, in the sense of, okay, yeah, the human body is a funny and complex bugger. And the whole thing about n equals 1 is that, and at least I'll give her the credit for this. She mentioned a thing called nutrigenetics. I don't think anybody I've come across mentions that. And at the same time, if you respect that level of personality or that sense of individuality, because she kind of blew off the idea of taking an allergy or food sensitivity test. Not that I'm laying balls and strikes, maybe I should. What do you guys think for those who may be watching or who have watched or will have watched the quote replay? Uh, not that I'm trying to put a scorecard to her advice, but I do think, like, especially when it comes to proper vegetation preparation of food, one of the things that I was open to was discussion of proper preparation of vegetables that require preparation, because for all the virtues extolled about various food types, whether vegetable, starch, non-starchy, blah blah blah, there's a lot to make available for the human body to digest, because not every human body is able to process the ingestion of fill in the blank food. Like, that's why I think when I put the playlist together with TJ Williams, the reason why I did that was he laid it out very carefully about choosing your hard. And I'll find the video where he talks about you might have a allergy to or a reaction to chicken, for example, eggs. Um, and if this dietitian in question did relay there's a possibility I would have what would be considered LADA, and there's some videos on LADA on YouTube, and I did some loose research on that. Latent autoimmune diabetes in adults or of adults. Don't know the full name of LADA, but think of, besides, I think that would be a cool label instead of just saying I'm type 1 or type 2. Anyway, so I'm just about, I don't know whether I want to peace out on her because of the advice or simply because I'm in between insurance or I'm not going to see her as often. Luckily, it's been every week, but on the same level, it's almost as though I say I get what she's saying. I'm willing to do my n equals 1 in terms of if I do this, if I eat this, I get this reaction or I don't get a reaction. I've been very hesitant. And this is one of the reasons why, if I were put tiers on my dietary or eating strategy preferences, and if you want, Dr. Anthony Chaffee is one of those voices that, depending on what your sensibilities are, I joke about it now in my head about vegetables. Because he's very, no, don't eat plants even. And he makes a valid point. Uh, Vegetables have defense mechanisms, whether they look innocent on the outside. They always say don't judge a book by its cover. Sure. Don't judge a book by its cover. So when you look at that innocent looking plant, don't forget it has defense mechanisms called, at least within the circles I used to frequent back then, thing called anti-nutrients, phytates, lectins. And Nick Norwitz does a good job of breaking those down. And so going back to the dietitian in question, it, it's like, you talk about how I might have a personal level of nutrigenetics. Thank you. But at the same time, don't say trigger words to me that make me raise eyebrows. Like, whole grains, come on, slow your roll. Like, this is why I like, okay, going back to my tiers. Carnivore, for the reasons that people often extol, like it's very anti-inflammatory, very easily why. There isn't much homework to do. I just got to look for what's grass fed. And even a lot of people within the same space would say, well, grass fed would be advantageous, but is it that advantageous over conventional, minimally processed meat? It's almost like a push based on who you talk to. I mean, they always say it's better than nothing, as the saying goes. So that's where I'm at right now in terms of I what I've been eating or my preferences would be. Reason why is like I don't need to have much guesswork being done. Part of the reductionist mindset that I posted in my playlist is it's got to start from somewhere. The reductionist presumes you're working off a place to reduce your decision making tree. So the easiest thing for me when it comes to food is meat, butter, eggs, salt, water. That really cuts down my guesswork a ton. Whereas with vegetables, you're almost like asking yourself, what's optimal? What if I get a reaction to this or that? Or what? How do I prepare it? At least she kind of gave me a simplistic answer. At least cook it. Vegetables. You know, what I do, for example, with certain vegetables or roots and tubers, the least I do is skin it. That is beyond the guesswork. Anything beyond skinning my stuff, it's like that's the easiest thing for me to do. Like the path of least resistance or the least of evils is I'll skin anything because that's where a lot of the toxins are, at least for vegetables. You know, for all the virtue you get about this or that, like what do you do to minimize the bad? That's that's why vegetables don't place as much of a home in my thinking. Like if I had my druthers, eggs, meat, butter, and then if I want, uh, I'm okay with certain things. Like I'll add a lemon. I'll add a lemon to my water, or a lime. Depends on what I'm feeling like, right? So that's my n equals 1 and how I wrestle with that. Given that I have some degree of diabetes. What exactly? My doctor tried to check, and like apparently I'm still type 2 and things like that. So when to check out? So when it comes to my primary, I just found out that he's going to be leaving the clinic at the beginning of next year. And so for me, what caused a red flag is weighing the side effects of various medications he's had me on. And I've been slowly introducing certain ones. But at the same time, like when I talk about my adjustment of lifestyle, it's almost sounding as though that is falling on his deaf ears, whatever deaf ears you want to attach to that. So I'm almost close to deucing out on him. Well, it's kind of providential in certain respects that he's kind of checking out on the clinic. So the question is, do I want to pick up another allopath? Do I want to stick with the naturopath that I just linked up with? Okay, we'll see how that goes. The cardiology clinic, I'm just about ready to deuce out on the nurse practitioner because she wants my LDL to be lower, but there are a lot of videos on the YouTubes about, yeah, lowering the number may be one thing, but it may cause another side effect. And telling me to cut down the salt when you realize, based on one doctor, Dr. Ben Artis, explaining how IVs work, which is a gang of salt loaded in water. That's what you shoot to lower blood pressure. So I'm thinking, yeah, that's true. How do you hydrate properly? Oh, add salt to your water. So, in other words, who do to believe? So, I'm about to deuce out on her, if not, I already did. I just signed the consent waiver, like, okay, fine, prescribe me those. You know, I've just an update for those. I might not have unveiled it in another video, but I did say I'm no longer going to take my statin. I'm no longer going to take my beta blocker. Because the funny thing about a statin is, yeah, you run the risk of insulin resistance. Oh, wait, I'm already there. Does it exacerbate that even more? I don't know. And so that's where I'm at. Okay, guys, I think I've rambled on long enough. Appreciate it again. Thank you for tuning in. And peace out until the next video, guys. I hope you all have a good day.